from boom to bust. Make it a thrill. It can steal your life and dominate your goals. Make a trouble and strife. Seek another soul. This little paper daisy. Let's go and flash the plastic. Blow it all on hot girls and wheels. Let's do something drastic. In the morning we'll never feel. Where were you on Black Wednesday? Stood for hours outside the Northern Rock. Still hungover from Tuesday. Must we take this banker's crock? In God we trust, says on the bill. From boom to bust, make every thrill. It can steal your life, dominate your goals. Make a trouble and strife, seek another soul. This little paper daisy. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you've had a good week. It's been a good one here. Been a busy one, but a really good one. I'm really pleased with how the week has turned out. And I'm really excited for yet another... I don't know why I did that. What? That's so like early 80s. I don't know why I did that. But anyway. Welcome again. I'm glad everybody is here. Actually, we've got quite a good crowd in already. So I can see we've got about 17 or 18 people in here. So hopefully we'll get another, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you guys could also go and spread the word, that would also help tremendously. So we can actually try and break the record, which is currently still standing at 34. So if we can peak above 34, then that would be great. And then we can start kind of pushing that little barrier as well. So if you know people who you think this show would be really useful for and helpful and beneficial to, then get the word out there and get them in here. And it would be great. If you are here and you're watching and you have not said hello in the chat, then please do. I would love to see your name and call you out. By name, because I like doing that for all of my guests, for at least as many of the guests as I can. I mean, once we get past a certain number of people in the chat, it's going to be very hard as we grow. It's going to be very hard for me to keep naming everybody. Yeah, that's going to be a thing, and I'm basically just going to have to pick out people at random when we get to that size. So, yeah, please do help me out. And spread the word about this show and spread the word about Jonny Gibe's shows as well. I know he would be tremendously happy if we could do that. We are working a lot more together now than I think we have ever done in the last, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And yet we've worked pretty closely together quite a lot over the years. But now we're kind of working even more closely together, which is really cool. So... there's a bit more of a kind of closer tie between my channel and his, which is really nice. And I've got Louis over at Alps Media to thank for that, because he has really helped kind of bring the two of us a bit more together and working towards a bit more of a kind of unified effort, I guess. So anyway, that's kind of that story. who was first in the door. And it was Billy once again. I think that's 3 in a row for Billy being first in the door. And he was like 2 hours ahead of time, which is pretty impressive. Followed by Paul Morgan. Kevin's Guitar Stories is here. Just Bob, one of my faithful moderators, is here. And Alps Media is here, who I was just mentioning. Ken Moss is here as well. Tony Carlini. Rich Cresswell, my other moderator down south in England. And who else do we have? Kyle Drajuziak is here. He actually has a question which I am definitely going to get to. I actually do have something to show you before we get to any questions. So if you do have questions, get them in the chat just now. And remember to type at Jonny Lipsham Studios and then your question. That way my name shows up in red and I can differentiate it from just the general chat. I'm happy for you guys to chat, but I need to differentiate it. So that I don't miss your questions. Where did I get to? Music to Motion, that's my good friend Mike is here. There's Kyle's question. Ironweed Studios is here. Bobby Booth is here. He has been at every single show, pretty much. I don't think he's hardly missed a single show. Dwayne is here. Ski Jump Joe. Ski Jump Joe's. Dear God. How to spinnerize a name. Ski Jump Toes is here. Mike over at Peace Valley Audio is here. Lowens is here. Thomas over in the Philippines. Thomas Melkison is here, which is awesome. Philippines are a very beautiful place. And Chris over at Deer Creek Audio is here as well. There's loads of people. Don Oliver is here. Roy Nicolason is here. I hope I got that right. If I did, I nailed it first time, which is amazing. I scribbled a link in the bathroom stall at a place I work at. Chris, that's just funny. Yes, Mike at Music to Motion. We will get to your question as well, because you and I have had a little chat about your question offline. So we will definitely go over a couple of things as well, because I think the things that we talked about might help some other people who are writing music for sync licensing and writing to strict briefs. So yeah, that's definitely a little bit of a challenge, and I will try and address it as much as I can. Yes, if you see any bots, and I have seen them popping up in all sorts of live streams that I have been involved in over the last couple of days, and they seem to be the same ones, so I think there are some bots floating about. Just block those little suckers, hide them from the channel. I would appreciate that, my faithful moderators, if you could do that. Alright, so let's get into this, because I do actually have something to show you. I think I have talked before about there's a whole bunch of memes that are on YouTube where somebody takes a well-known piece of music and sets it to the chord changes of another piece of music. For example, Rick Astley's famous hit, and I can't even remember the title of the song now, but anyway, but using the chord changes to John Coltrane's Giant Steps. And there are loads of others where they've taken a particular piece of music and then used the chord changes to Giant Steps, so that basically the piece of music follows those chord changes. My favorite one of those, by the way, is Thomas the Tank Engine, the theme tune to Thomas the Tank Engine to the chord changes of Giant Steps. And Aha's Take On Me is another good one that works surprisingly well. So I'm actually going to show you guys without using Coltrane's changes, because I don't actually have a MIDI file that has those. If somebody has a MIDI file that has the chord changes to Giant Steps, I'd appreciate that, because then I can just drag and drop it straight onto the chord track and it's there. But I'm going to show you how you can make a piece of music using the chord track to follow the chord changes of a completely different piece of music, and the interesting results you can get. And we're actually going to butcher one of my own songs to do it. And in fact, we're going to use the song that you have just heard. So you now know what that song sounds like in reality, in the real world. You're about to find out what happens when we take that song and make it follow the chord changes to George and Ira Gershwin's I Got Rhythm. And the results should be interesting. I have not done this yet. I haven't heard it. I have brought the track in, but I deliberately have not played it because I want to find out with you guys what it's going to sound like and whether it's actually going to work as well as some of these other ones. So, oh yes, Bobby, that's right. You have missed maybe 2 or 3 of my shows. That's right, because you were unwell at one point. That's right, I remember. So yes, I can see there are a couple of questions coming in now, and I am going to get to them. But I want to get this demonstrated before you. So let's get that set up. So here we are, over in Studio One. I did experiment with this other piece of music, which was a piece of music that actually came with my computer. It was one of those ones that's just kind of pre-installed on the computer. And I thought, you know what, there's probably going to be some kind of copyright issue if I try and use that. So I am not going to use it. But I did use it as a test to basically see, does this actually work? And it does. It really works. So I'm going to show you how to do it. And I'm not going to do this at an insanely fast tempo, although you can. Actually, there's a really good one that not many people will have heard. Actually, seems we're speaking of giant steps. But the band Coldplay and their song Fix You has been done this way to the chord changes of giant steps. And actually, the results for that sound pretty good. So go and check those out on YouTube. You know, the way to type it is Coldplay, but it's giant steps. And you'll get a whole bunch of other hits for but it's giant steps. And some of them are really good. If you have no idea what giant steps is, you can check out the original by John Coltrane. And you only need to listen to 30 seconds of it to get the kind of idea of the piece. And then you can kind of listen to different pieces of music using the same chord changes. And it's actually really interesting. But you can take any piece of music and do this with any other set of chord changes. And it's quite fun, actually. All right, so here we go. So here's my piece, Paper Deity, from my album Belonging to Tomorrow from 2016. So it's a little bit elderly now. I must do something about that and actually put out another album. It's not an album, it's an EP. But yes, I need to put out another EP. But here's Paper Deity. All right, so that's what you were listening to at the start of the show. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this follow the chord track in the universal mode. So if I click on universal, and we should get the little chord track icon there. And now at the top here in the chord track, you should see the chord changes to Gershwin's I Got Rhythm. Now, there are a couple of anomalies, like this A sharp 6. That should be B flat. That is a mistake. Not quite sure what's gone on there. But it still sounds correct. So anyway, check this out. It should be quite interesting. As I said, I haven't heard what this is going to sound like. So this should be interesting because Paper Deity is in... What key is it in? It's in D. And this would put it in B flat because I Got Rhythm is in B flat. So check this out.
Past the window on the 13th floor. One more sad life crashes.
Kind of works in a weird way.
Broken life yearn for more and more. Another spin of the wheel.
That is totally weird.
Roll off the dice for a sun return. create your song for bands to burn. In God we trust, set us on the bill. From good to bust, we gave a thrill that can steal your life. Dominate your goals, with trouble and strife. Seeking love and soul, against paper death.
I'm not quite sure what to make of that. Okay, interesting is all I will say. It turned my song into a very twee-sounding pop song. But yeah, if we turn off the chord track and just compare and contrast. So, it's done interesting things. I mean, obviously there are some audio artifacts because the chords change at a different point in the Gershwin song compared to the chord changes for mine. My verses are quite static harmonically, whereas the Gershwin song, the chord changes happen there's like 2 chords per bar, until you get to the bridge where it's 2 bars per chord until you get to like the last line, which is actually pretty standard for a 32 bar AABA form, which is what I Got Rhythm is written in. Basically you have an A section which is then repeated, and then you have the B section which is where the harmonic rhythm slows down, and then it goes back to the 2 changes per bar. The point I think where it really works for my song in a weird way is the chorus. It has a very interesting effect on the chorus for my song, or rather not the chorus, the middle section before you go into the chorus. I think it works strangely well, and then you go into the chorus, and the chorus is suddenly really quite bright and happy. It's a real strange juxtaposition with the lyrics, actually, because the lyrics are kind of about finance and the financial world and corruption within the financial world. Basically, that's what Paper Deity is all about. Paper Deity being another way of saying money is your god. And so for a lot of the financial industry, that is true. Money is like a god. But it can be true if you're poor as well. If you have no money, money is still kind of a little bit of a deity for you because it controls your life, because you're scrambling to be able to pay bills. Whereas at the other end of the tree, you're worshipping money in a kind of different way because you are wanting to acquire wealth and more and more and more. Whereas at the other end of the spectrum, it's a different kind of worship. You're kind of enslaved to it in a different way. And I think that's what I was trying to get at with the song and make a big kind of joke about it. So maybe that's a set of chord changes I should have gone with. And I should have gone with I Got Rhythm chord changes for the song. But I wanted to show you that because I thought it's a neat little trick. You can try this with any set of chord changes. You just drag them into the chord track up here, and then drag in your piece of music. Try and sync up the tempo and the kind of harmonic rhythm of your piece with the chord changes that you've brought in, and then try and make the tempos kind of fit. Now, as you can see here, it says file tempo not set. I had to try and remember what tempo this song was at, and it's actually 101 beats a minute. So I thought, okay, I'll just round it off to 100 and go for there. And that seems to work. But yeah, the I Got Rhythm chord changes are a little bit faster than that. They're more like a tempo range, anything between 180 and 340. So yeah. So I thought I'd show you this so that you can try this for yourself. Try bringing in a well-known song. Maybe something by the Beatles might work. or try I don't know, try something by Krista Berg or Kenny G, my two most hated artists. I cannot stand them. So maybe, just to spite me, maybe try something by Krista Berg or Kenny G, bring that into your session with a completely different set of chord changes, and just see what creative fun you can have. You can have loads of creative fun. I intend to explore this a lot more and maybe even make my own little memes out of this. So there you go. I thought I'd show you that. Have fun with it. All right, let's get over here to your questions. And for some reason, I can't scroll up the chat. I don't know what's going on there. Let's go back up to where those other questions were. I have to find them. All right, Kyle had a question. He says, explain audio normalize in English. I will try. I could try in Hebrew as well. I'd probably make a better job of explaining it in Hebrew than I will in English, but I will try. In simple terms, when you normalize something, you are taking the audio and you're making the peak values to a fixed level. So, for example, if you normalize to 0 dB, then you will turn everything up so that the peaks peak at 0 dB. The peaks of your transients will peak at 0 dB. It's not a limiter. It's basically just increasing the gain so that the transients peak at 0 dB. Now, there is a macro in Studio One that will do that. It will normalize to 0 dB and then turn everything down to -12. So it will go up and then turn everything down. So all your peaks are normalized to a particular level, in this case 0 dB, and then everything is turned down so that all your peaks peak at a particular level. It's a smart little macro. It's a quick way to gain stage, actually. It's just to select all of your audio events and then hit that normalize to -12 dB, and all your peak transient levels, which is bink, down to -12. So it's quite a quick way to gain stage. You can try it. You can try using it. The cool thing about that macro is you can go and adjust the values. So if you want different values for normalizing, for example, let's say you have a big session with 250 channels of audio, then yeah, maybe something like -12 or -18 would be a good little normalize. So maybe have a macro for one and then for the other. And then for smaller sessions, have one that you set for gain staging to -6, for example. And then, so when you've got a smaller session, you can just normalize to -6. Bigger sessions, -12 or -18. Really, for gain staging, a lot of people say, oh, you have to set it to -12, or you have to set it to -6, or you have to set it to X value. And I'm just like, no, there is no have to about this. You pick an arbitrary level that you set the gain of all of your audio events, and that's how you gain stage. And then everything that happens processing-wise happens after everything is leveled out like that. There are some arguments that would say in a modern digital DAW, you don't need to gain stage because there is so much headroom. The headroom is practically limitless. But for me, even though that is the case, and that is true, and that is a fact, I still think that gain staging has some value for you being able to start with all of your audio at the same, peaking at the same level. Whether you choose to call it gain staging or just leveling things off, kind of up to you. I don't really care. I'm not really, I don't hold tight to terminology, and I don't hold tight to particular techniques because they go out of fashion. You know, gain staging was a big thing. Now gain staging isn't quite such a big thing, and there are some people saying it's even obsolete. So don't hold too fast to rules about what you must and must not do. But in terms of normalizing, that's how normalizing works. It takes your peaks and basically your peaks now peak at whatever that normalized value is. So if it's 0 dB, then everything will will be normalized to that value. So I hope you understand a little bit more about that. As I said, there's a lot more that could be said about that. Mike is sharing to the groups he's in. Cool, thank you. Mike over at Music to Motion. He says, I'm working on a new brief and I want to ask your opinion on doing dramedy music. Dramedy music, I suppose, would be a blend of... I am assuming that you are working on something that is for TV or for a radio presentation that has elements of drama but also strong elements of comedy as well. So your music needs to reflect both. So you can be serious and quirky at the same time. That affords you a wide range of opportunities for creativity to create little musical jokes, whilst also being serious. So you can use juxtaposition. So you can write something that has, maybe a serious vibe to it. Maybe something that is kind of seriously dark orchestral strings that you can then have other elements that are a little bit juxtaposed to that. So maybe, I think you and I were talking about the idea of a kind of drunken saxophone sound, kind of on the top of this bed of somber, dark, serious, intense strings, where it's very solidly kind of neoclassical, post-romantic neoclassical, and then you've got this kind of drunken tenor sax player just kind of wailing and screeching over the top. You can use those kind of juxtapositions, but also think about kind of what is the sound for the soundtrack for the show you're working on. If you have those kind of materials available, if they will let you kind of, take a sneak peek at kind of what the vibe of the show is already, then that will help. If they've sent you reference materials, listen to the reference materials and make notes. Listen to the kind of things that strike you as being either funny or serious or, any elements of that, and make notes about what the composer has done. What else can I say about that? Probably one of your most important tools is going to be melody. Even if it is just one little motif that you can carry off in different keys, in a different mode, in a different mood. So even if you have something that is a quirky, jaunty little tune, you can totally change the mood of that quirky, jaunty little tune by putting it in a minor key and having low-voiced strings supporting it at a slower tempo. So you can have your little jaunty melody dancing around up here, and then, kind of dark, kind of sounding. You can have your dark kind of strings playing that kind of thing whilst you've got your jaunty melody that you've maybe composed for a different cue that is bright, jaunty, jokey, happy, and then you just transpose that to the minor mode, take the tempo down a little bit, and you're using the same melodic ideas across all of your cues that you need to write for this particular episode of a show, or for this particular film, or whatever it might be. So you can use those kind of ideas. Take a couple of melodic ideas that maybe represent a particular character that you know about that's in the show, or, even if you don't know, even if the brief is kind of a little bit broad and basically says, kind of do these kind of things, listen to these reference materials and kind of come up with your own thing kind of in that kind of ballpark. You don't know what kind of characters are going to appear in this show necessarily. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I mean, particularly with a sync licensing thing, you probably don't. unless you are in the position where you are the composer for the show, in which case you will get previews. I've done work like that before, where I have previews. Like, I work with students and do student films, so I get previews. So I kind of know what the film is and what the characters are, and I know the script, I know the story, I get to see the storyboards, all those kind of things. I get access to all of that materials. When you're in a sync licensing position, you don't really get those. So whilst you might have a much broader brief and maybe not quite so specific brief, certainly think about creating a couple of motifs that you think might represent a particular character or a couple of particular characters that you imagine in your mind, even if you've never seen the show or you have no other access to anything to do with the show in particular. And it's just like, hey, we want more of this kind of material that we might use in X, Y, and Z shows. And, you know, your cues might turn up in 5, 6, 7 different shows just being reused. Then yeah, having a little melodic cells, little motifs that are like, 2-4 bars long, something like that, that you can transpose, that you can change the mood of quite easily. That would be kind of one of the things that you would probably need to focus on. Because writing for TV, writing for film is all about economy. It's about making the most capital out of very little things. And really, the two standout composers that do that are Hans Zimmer, for me anyway, Hans Zimmer and John Williams. John Williams recycles a lot of material throughout his scores. If you listen particularly to the score for E.T., you will find similar motivic material associated with characters cropping up all the time. Whenever a certain character is involved, you'll hear their little theme being played. And depending upon the mood of the scenario that the character is in, that motif will be played or written differently. For example, if you listen to Star Wars, you listen to Luke's theme. Listen to Luke's theme at the start of the film, where Luke's character is first introduced to the film, and then compare that with after his aunt and uncle have been murdered. And he is at a position where he no longer has any family, and he has to decide, is he going to go with Obi-Wan Kenobi and go and join the fight against the Empire, or what is he going to do? So compare and contrast how Williams uses the same material to explore different facets of character. So you can do that even if, you don't know what the characters are. You can create characters in your mind and have a little motif that represents them. So maybe think about those kind of ideas. I hope that helps. But that's a great question. Mike at Peace Valley Audio says, is there a way to put pitch names in the drum editor in a folder to save space? I added all the Battery 4 pitch names I got off the exchange, but I can't find a way to folder it up. Good question, and I have no idea. I don't use pitch maps at all, actually. I've never been in a scenario where I've needed to. That's not to say that there won't be one coming up, but currently I don't use them. So really the best person to reach out to about that would be my good friend and colleague Lucas Rijitska, he is just Mr. Awesome when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I actually don't know the answer to that question, and I don't mind saying that. Let's go back and see next question. Secret Squirrel says, are you by any chance going to share the chord track / MIDI on Sphere so that we can experiment with tracks on our own? That'd be super cool. I can do that if you are a member of the workspace that I created for the challenge. Hopefully you guys remember what that is, since we talked about it. I can go and bring up that workspace. so that you can see it. It's called the 2022 Household Foley Moly Music Challenge. And here it is, including the Henry vacuum cleaner. And we've got a few people in here already. So if you don't know about this, go back a couple of shows, and the challenge is basically to create samples of your household appliances and any other household items that you would kind of use, or on a sort of daily or weekly basis, and then record them and upload them to this workspace. And what we're going to do with the items in this workspace is we are going to use just these samples, and you're going to create a piece of music that makes sense and is musical out of those sounds. So it doesn't sound like just a cacophony. So a lot of the sounds that you put in there are going to be unpitched sounds. So you will need to treat this as if it's a percussion ensemble. If you've never written for percussion, go and check out the music of people like Verese and Steve Reich, people like that, because they've done loads of percussion ensemble stuff and stuff for unpitched sounds. So it is entirely possible that you can completely not have any melody whatsoever, take melody and harmony out of the equation and just be left with rhythm and form and structure as your only two frameworks for making music. And it can be done. I've written for percussion ensemble before, so I kind of have a little bit of a head start on you guys. But this will be fun for everybody. So if you have not done this, drop me an email to Jonny at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk. My website is down there. Just put Jonny at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk and send me an email, and I will link you to that workspace. Now, if you are not a member of Personosphere, you are still good to do this. If you have Studio One, you therefore have a my.personas.com account. So you can still get involved in this. You can still get access to this workspace. It will still work for you. And you can still upload your stuff. And then we will, once we've got a whole bunch of contributions and a whole load of sounds, then you can start taking stuff out of here, downloading the sounds, and start making your piece. And then when we get towards the end of February, we will do a few Sunday Night Lives where we discuss what we've done. And if you've got a piece of music that is finished, send it to me. And then we can play our pieces of music on the show if you are up for that. So that was all to say, basically, yes, I can make the chord track MIDI file available to you if you would like it, if you are in that workspace. If you are not, join the workspace. Let's see. I'm going down just strictly for questions here, folks, just for now. Yeah, I'm with you there, Mike, over at Peace Valley Audio. You're quite right. This can be more expensive than drugs, that's for sure. Chat got stuck once again. Rich Cresswell says the Star Wars themes, Superman and Indiana Jones, are uncanny, and you can transfer from one to the other really easily. This is a very good example. Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing about Indiana Jones and Star Wars is you will find Star Wars themes cropping up in Indiana Jones scores, and vice versa. Williams is a prolific quoter of himself for his own amusement and for anybody else that gets the jokes. He has quite the sense of humor when it comes to his own music. And interestingly enough, you will see this with Spielberg as well, that he references himself in other films. Or at least he references other films he has made. For example, in one of the Indiana Jones films, I forget which one it is, there is a club in the background which is called Club Obi-Wan, which is a clear reference to Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is very, very funny. So you guys can do that as well in your music. What keeps you going as far as your musical endeavors are concerned? Asked Tony. Good question. That's a really good question, actually. What keeps me motivated to make music? Music actually keeps me motivated to make music. Basically, my mind is filled with music all the time. Even when I go to bed, there's still music playing in my head. I've been like that since I was maybe 3 years old, 4 years old. I was convinced that somebody was playing music in the room, and it wasn't. It was in here. But it's not music that I've heard. It's what goes on in my head is composing music all the time. So my brain is always creative, always working on something. Sometimes I mix a song in my head and then I open up the session in Studio One and I just do what I heard in my head. So, what keeps me motivated is that I'm a little bit obsessive. No, I correct myself. I'm extremely obsessed with music and music making to the point of, kind of the exclusion of other things. Sometimes to the exclusion of things that are really, really important. And so I, throughout my life, have never really had a whole load of friends. I've not been one of those people that's just incredibly popular with anybody. So in order to kind of fill in that little space, I listened to a lot of music across a broad range of styles, not just jazz. I mean, a lot of people think I'm just a jazz nut. Yes, I am a jazz nut, but I have listened to a lot and studied a lot of classical works. Up there on the shelf, just out of shot up there, I have a whole bunch of scores. I have Hosts of the Planets. I have the Aliens score. I have the Matrix. I have Tchaikovsky. I have Rachmaninoff piano concertos. I have Mozart and Beethoven symphonies. Just loads of scores. And I have all the music files because I burned all my CDs onto my computer and I can just listen and I can sit reading through the score whilst listening to the music. And so I listen to jazz, I listen to classical, I listen to rock, I listen to reggae. I listen to all sorts of styles of music that I really enjoy, so long as it's got good melody, good set of chord changes, they are well-written arrangements, and the lyrics tell an interesting story. I'm into it. If it's an instrumental, then, the melodies will tell their story to me. So, and if there's good improvisation on the record, then all the better. So, if there's somebody like Freddie Hubbard on the record, or Randy Brecker, or Michael Brecker, or, whomever, so long as the music's good, I'll listen to it. Billy Joel is one of my songwriting heroes. He's just freaking awesome. I could listen to that guy all day long. He's a great singer. He writes great songs. He has phenomenal piano chops, which a lot of people kind of overlook. But I will, in the same, kind of in the same playlist, as Billy Joel, I'll have Bruce Hornsby, I'll have Elton John. I've got quite eclectic tastes, really, although, much of my obsession is with the music of Charlie Parker and John Coltrane. So I hope that kind of answers that question. Do the samples have to be household items? Yes. Yes, so if you want to make a kick drum out of a fridge door slamming shut, you can use that. Or, anything that is in your house. If you want to record your car starting up on your driveway, you can do that too. I'll have that. Garage doors closing, telephone, if you can have a landline telephone, phone it. Let's hear the ring. Let's hear the ring of the phone. Stuff like that. Whatever, putting the microwave on. The microwave going ping at the end. Any of that kind of stuff. counts towards this. It's got to be household. That's the limit. CW5 Emily says, you are popular with us. Thank you so much. That's very kind. Thank you. I like that. Bops has been retracting messages, which is a shame. Let's see. Bob says, I have a lot of scores that I need to settle. Most of those agents are dead, unfortunately. Man, you are hilarious, dude. Let's go back up a little bit. Just make sure I haven't missed anything. Williams is a genius and a living legend. Yes, he is. He is great. And he is also great at, as Rich immediately points out, he is great at quoting Holst. Sometimes he can be very literal in quoting Holst, to the point of having exactly the same chord orchestrated and voiced in exactly the same way, as an homage to Holst. And you'll find that cropping up in the E.T. score all over the place. You listen to that and they go, Holst. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's Holst there. Oh, that's Holst there as well. I don't have a problem with it because I don't have a problem with quoting people that have been influential to you as a musician. I am just as well to throw in a Charlie Parker lick as I am to throw in something that I heard, a phrase that I heard Freddie Hubbard play that I thought was just as cool as something that Bird played. So, I will create something built around a melody or an idea. Like one of my songs off of the Belonging to Tomorrow record features a drum groove that was created by a drummer who played with a French fusion band in the 80s. And I just heard this groove and I thought, that is just a great groove. I liked the way the kick drum kind of was playing this African rhythm. And I thought, I have got to have that drum groove. So I basically memorized it, programmed it to create a guide track for my drummer and said, here you go. This is the groove that you're going to play on this song. Learn that groove. And that was that. So yeah, I have no problems with quoting. Peter Brooks says, have you seen a doctor? I know lots of doctors, actually. And I, of course, have my own GP. The last time I saw my GP was when I tore ligaments in my right foot in the beginning of the lockdown, 2020, beginning of the March lockdown of 2020. I tore ligaments in my foot, which was hilarious. Not. And they thought I broke my foot, so they sent me to the hospital. I had x-rays and scans, and they said, yeah, your x-rays are fine, your scans are not. You've torn some ligaments in your foot. So that was that. I hadn't broken any bones, which I was very pleased about. But yes, I have not seen a doctor about hearing music in my head, because I know that in some very rare cases, those are connected to tumors that are growing on the area of your brain where kind of music and oral and interpreting sound data is processed in your brain. But no, I have never had an issue with that. The sound of wet briefs hitting the floor. Okay, Chris, if you really want to do that. Mike is asking, who wants to Zoom after this? If anybody is up for joining Mike on a Zoom call, Mike, you can by all means stick the link to your Zoom call in the chat, and I'm sure people would be up for it. I will be maybe up for it for a couple of minutes, but not for long. Maybe just enough time for me to finish my cup of tea before I go to bed, because I have to be up early tomorrow. That's just too funny. Ski Chump says, Me getting shouted at for wearing muddy shoes is a common household sound. Not sure she'll appreciate me sampling her, though. Yeah, I think that's more of a person, household person, rather than household item. Something like this. If you've got beer bottles, you know, these can work. Or you can blow across them, or you can pitch bend blowing across them. So anything like that will do. You know, whatever is around your house. I wouldn't recommend using one of these. This is a cricket ball, because if you use a cricket ball, you can break things. I know from many years of experience. So yeah, that's kind of how the household Foley challenge is set up. So the end of February is when you guys need to have your pieces of music complete if you want to take part, and then send me the completed pieces of music, and we'll play them on the first show of March if you guys are up for it. If I get no takers, then this will be a huge monstrous flop and there will be no music to play. So plunger would be a good sound. Yes, definitely. Toilet flush. Yes, you can do a toilet flush. There's lots of things you can do with a toilet flush. You can reverse it. You can pitch shift it. You can do all sorts of things with a toilet flush. I'll accept farting in the bathtub if you want as well. Can you make this open to non-sphere members? Yes, as I just said, if you have a my.personas.com account, you are good to go. You will be able to join the workspace. All you need to do is email me the account email address. So the email address that you sign into your account with, give me that email address and I will send you an email. And then you just need to accept the invitation to join the workspace. That's how it works. So you do not have to be a member of Personasphere to be involved in this. But you do need to have a my.personas.com account at the very least. So there you go. Give the cat a path and record the results. I'm not sure that a cat counts as a household item. I'm thinking more kind of inanimate objects for this challenge. So, for example, glasses case. You know, that would work quite well. There's lots of things. Or how about pen? You could make a hi-hat sound out of that. Just pitch shift it up a bit. Who's the first to stick their mic in a toilet for a flush? Yeah, I wouldn't recommend close micing a toilet flush. Maybe, you know, a couple of feet away. Maybe multi-mic it, so you got it in stereo. Maybe have a couple of stereo mics and then have a room mic further back. And you can capture the whole thing, including the reflections of the sound off the wall. That could be quite fun. So there you go. Those are just some ideas for you to try out. I will be trying out a few of those myself to create a piece of music. And your piece of music only needs to be 90 seconds long. That's 90 seconds long. But it needs to have a beginning, middle, and end in those 90 seconds, okay? So that will be the challenge. And as Rich says, you can turn everything into a synth with sample one or presence. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can map them to impact if you want. You can just drag and drop your samples into an impact and create a kit out of them. Which is probably what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to use a mixture of impact and sample one is probably what I will do. So there you go. And Mike says we'll start in about 10 to 20 minutes. Cool. I'm going to wrap up the show in literally 2 minutes. Rich says everything can be turned into drums. Yeah, absolutely. I've done this before. I made a body percussion kit. which I've never released to the public. Maybe I should sometime. But yeah, I made a body percussion kit, and I made some interesting sounds that I turned into really nice sounding snare drums, kick drums, toms, that kind of stuff. And it was all done by my body. So there you go. All right, folks, we will wrap it there. What about counter drumming? Yeah, counter drumming, it can work, especially if you have multiple different sounds. So, you know, maybe if you have your kitchen counter, and then maybe a couple of pans, and then maybe you are opening and closing cupboards, that kind of stuff. Stick up some mics in your kitchen and just use your kitchen as a drum set. That could be quite fun as well. All right, there we go. And you guys are starting to talk about gas and stuff. And I know who the ringleader of that discussion is. That would be Chris over at Deer Creek Audio. So, Chris, we know where you're at, buddy. All right, folks, that is the end of the show. Thanks a lot for coming, and I will leave you with about 30 seconds of Paper Deity following the changes to I Got Rhythm by George and Ira Gershwin. Have a great night, everybody.
On the 13th floor, one more sad life crashes, broken by the yearn for more and more. Another spin of the wheel, roll of the dice, or a sun return. You beg, borrow, or steal, or trade your soul for bands to burn. Says on the bill, from blue to rust, they give a thrill, they can steal your life, dominate your goals, let trouble strike.